Through years and years of experience, one learns what it takes to be a good writer, whether through passion and ambition, or just aiming for a passing grade and not giving a darn about the rest of it.
I don't give a darn!
A person discovers the elements of writing that can help make a piece effective. Only those who love writing will seek it upon themselves to know how to make it effective. Which now means that last part doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
But every once in a while, the writer must reflect back to the era in which their skills were slowly budding in their high school classes. It is a journey of terror, forced use of vocabulary, cliché sentence starters and enders, rushed storylines, and maybe an extremely dated pop culture reference for good measure. You think you're funny for putting that in there? No, you're not. Alas, I must go through this journey of cringing and pain and realize just how much better I have gotten as a writer over the years. Let's start our adventure from the very beginning. From my days as a clean and squeaky freshman. It is Night, the adventures of the crazed, soup-hungry Jewish Camp Buna prisoner. How did this even get a 40 out of 40? Look at this thing.
This short, fictional first-person account of an experience at a Nazi prison camp was written after reading the book Night by Elie Wiesel, which is also a first-person account of life at a prison camp. As you can see, I was going for the edgy expository title. The little story basically describes a man's insanity after being hungry for Camp Buna's soup rations and wants to have it all for himself without at all thinking about his friends, who stare at him in disgust. One thing that destroys this paper is the overly large font that was not properly edited. Another is a drastic overabundance of cliched phrases. Like, the entire paper consists of cliched phrases, and not to mention how shockingly short it is. I will give myself credit for at least trying to set up a creepy, unsettling tone though.
But that's not enough! I must go from one page... I must go from 1 page to 9.5. Wait, 9.5? Oh look, a narrative writing assignment. My favorite kind.
Sophie Year, home to the only narrative writing assignments I ever had, housed this overly ambitious Hero's Quest type story, Rescue at Zonus. The weirdest thing about this is that it's a fan fiction. Yeah, you heard that right. A fan fiction that I wrote for school! Specifically, it is a fan fiction of the Star Fox video game franchise, in which the Star Fox team, post-2002, is sent to rescue member Falco Lombardi's love interest, Kat Monroe. As if you couldn't already tell, this story is a bit on the long side.
Just kidding. A bit long is a gross understatement, like, ew, that's nasty! Ugh!
It's not even just the fact that it's freaking 9.5 pages, but it's also that my handwriting was some of the smallest back then, making the story even longer. I think the best thing I did in this is show how even a basic story can't be rushed. I took the time to sort of get the characters in their groove, waste no time with the exposition, which there's quite a bit of actually, and create some decent emotional moments between characters. Like I said though, they seem somewhat out of character at times, though just as a general piece of narrative, it does a surprisingly okay job, even if it does take some unnecessary creative liberties with the source material just to make some of the conflict work. One thing that is jarring though, is the use of vocabulary words. You know when they tell you have to write a specific kind of story and use this word and that word and underline said words? Well, the implementation of said words is so painfully obvious that you literally don't even need the underlines to find them.
Okay, I put in like so much effort into this and I still got 1 point missing and it was only worth 20 points? How did I get the... Oh, my brain hurts from all it. I just want to read something simple. Something that I don't have to stress about at all.
Junior year brought us Help a Lady Out. It's a writing discussing The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams. Basically, it discusses one particular character, Amanda. Specifically, it lists the ways she is capable of fending for herself after her son, Tom, who was the only one providing payment on their life in a tenement house, abandoned her for the merchant marine business. There were many skills and interests Amanda had that could be used in a paying job, and I took the time to organize them using quotes from the play to support my answer. I also, of course, discussed how her stubbornness and inability to live outside the past a characteristic of hers that is very evident throughout the play, can interfere with her taking the first step to getting a job with her hidden talents. It's simple, straightforward, and doesn't try to implement any writing gimmicks like vocabulary or some special type of grammar. I guess if I did have to complain though, I would say I did say she a lot, and there's a small grammar mistake here and there. It also isn't exactly my standing ovation, it's just kind of plain.
Is that as far as my skills have gotten? Am I really only able to make such plain papers like that? Well, I never write anything special. It sure looks that way. How sad.
Copy with the machina!
What the hell? Wait a minute. Oh, that's right. It's my coveted magnum opus from senior year, the one Mrs. Treywick graded when we were reading the things they carried by Tim O'Brien. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my coveted masterpiece.
Yeah, now we're talking hot stuff!
Still hot! Still hot! Still hot!
In this paper, I was born in 1951. I was drafted into the Vietnam War and given a draft number. My job was to talk about how I feel about being forced to fight for a cause that was quickly losing ground and for a war that we were being absolutely demolished in. The assignment gave me prompt questions like, what are your thoughts on this? Or, what are your top 3 fears? Now, the Vietnam War was a huge event in history. Since nobody believed in a dead cause, you can probably imagine real soldiers were scared out of their wits when they had to be put out of whatever career they were trying to get themselves into in order to have a good life, for the sake of fighting a war we were losing badly. So step 1 to achieving my success in this simulation of an account of a drafted soldier is throwing those prompts out the window!
There are quite a bit of people who would just follow them dead on and say something like, I don't know, like, oh, one of my top 3 fears is... No, none of that bull! That doesn't show what a paper like this is supposed to show. Actual, legitimate fear. Maybe even psychological damage.
And that's exactly what I aimed for in this paper. Right from the get-go, I admit that I am weak, and I couldn't dare fight for anything. At least, not physically. I used a lot of witty, snarky remarks out of spite and anguish in order to simulate how my mind was bouncing back and forth between different personalities due to my mental instability. This is also one of my first runnings where I incorporate an analogy throughout in order to set up a theme. In this case, I compared the war to the actress Kathy Bates as seen in the film adaptation of Misery. I also just tried to make the paper ooze with personality. I want to show that I am legitimately terrified. I was a real human being who would eventually have to suffer as a result of being unwillingly and unfairly tossed into the relentless battlegrounds of Vietnam. Now, usually I tend to be reliant on a base structure or understanding of the material I'm supposed to work on, but in this case, foregoing the prompts that would otherwise limit me on the things I can say opens an entire new realm of possibilities that I can pull off with this scenario. When I am allowed the freedom to be creative with my work and how I express it, I try my damned hardest. In fact, my only complaint throughout the entire paper is one of the closing sentences, which kind of sounds a little forced and maybe is more aware of the given prompts than the rest of the paper would suggest. And maybe I might have taken a risk with some controversial references, but that makes it more effective because I don't care. I'm just too busy being angry, afraid, and miserable all at once to think about anyone or anything else. But what made this paper a true work of art is the amount of humanity that got put into it. I felt for this person. I was that person.
And that is why this paper deserves to be hung on the wall of English class, so that kids can look up to it in inspiration. But perhaps there is something outside the class. Something that's as original, creative, and thought-provoking as some of my work in English. Nah, I got nothing.